shadows blocking the light. But on a cylinder, yeah, it's actually rougher than that. It sort of does something like, I mean, I know you're drawing quick, but it kind of just, it's not going to be very defined. It's going to be a hazy edge. But yeah, it would sort of sweep up like that.
How do you figure that out?
Let me. So if you look over here, do you see that little curve? It's not so much something I would even devote any time to figuring out. I would just say, okay, it's a little bit like that and try and feel it. You know, you guys, a lot of what we're doing when we're talking about creating these illusions, a lot of this is about, this is odd. I don't know if I'm explaining this the right way. If I say anything intelligent, Brandon, write it down. So much of what we're trying to do here, I was doing an exercise last night in preparation for next week's lecture, which is going to be a totally new thing that I've never done before in this class, but I think it'll really help you guys. And in doing it, I was encountering the same problem. And what I'm realizing is for a lot of you guys, your struggle isn't with the knowledge. Your struggle is kind of with feeling your way to it as much as thinking your way to it. Here's an example. Next week I'm going to show you a thing that is a purely, it's one of the coolest demos I know of. And it doesn't always work, it doesn't always work dramatically, but when it does, it's damned impressive. And I can sometimes do it for people and they see it, where I will do something one way, and then I will do something exactly the same in terms of all the marks I'm putting on the paper. I'm using one line and one line, all right? And yet they'll look different. And you'll go, wait a minute, one of them will feel flat, and one of them will feel volumetric. Yet if you look at the marks, it's the same marks. And it's pretty weird. And that's what I'm going to tell you guys what the only difference between the two is. The only difference between the two is how I was thinking about them as I did them. And it changes the effect of the drawing. Okay, so when I tell you guys next week, and I'm going to be doing this, when I'm telling you guys that you're drawing flat, the problem is, it's not that you're doing, people can draw things mechanically perfect, and they can feel flat. And they can draw things mechanically perfect, and they can feel volumetric. The difference is not as much in the drawing as it is in your head. So when you're trying to do something like this, what's important is that you, over your time practicing as an artist, you learn to kind of almost, for lack of a better term, almost pre-visualize. You almost have to take on the ability in your brain, okay, if I did see that, yeah, it would be like that, you know? And I can sometimes tell if someone's has this ability or not by the way they move their hands when they're describing something to me. Because they'll go, yeah, would it be like this, or would it be like, and they'll be going like this. Because they're thinking three-dimensionally. Whereas the other people are going height and width only. You know? So this is very like, but it's real. It changes how you guys draw. And what many of you guys are struggling with, like the students among you that have more mileage, you know, like Kit's belly on that pirate that was working because there you were really feeling it, okay? And then when you went to some of the other parts, you weren't making yourself feel that subconsciously, and it went and flattened. So you have the ability to do it, but you have to remind yourself to do it consciously. Other people are still struggling with acquiring the ability to draw it not flat, you know. Does that make any sense? I'm all over the place here.
So thinking in form?
Yeah, you need to think dimensionally. When you guys, when I draw, this sounds a little creepy stalkerish, but it's really true. When I'm drawing from a live model, it honestly, a part of my brain feels like it's going like this. You know, when I'm drawing a line, I'm not just going outline, outline. It's almost like I'm touching that part of the form and going like this as I draw it. Yeah, it's a sculptural feeling. And that's why drawing from photographs is always worse, because it already did it for you. It already did the translation. But drawing from life, you feel the three-dimensional quality because you've got binary vision or binocular vision and everything else, and it helps you envision it. Okay, so all these things are really huge, and actually that's what all of next week is about. Is I want to get you guys doing that well. You know, but this is the tricky part. I can't make you feel it necessarily. I can tell you what it feels like. I can show you examples that hopefully will help lead you to that. But ultimately, it's something that is going to occur in your head. And when it does, it's like a switch. All of a sudden, you can draw better. Anyway, random stuff. Okay. Any questions before we get off these? Yeah.
Just the shadow. So is the core shadow like this shadow line thingy thing the tangent is?
The core shadow, yeah, is basically, let me lift it up so it's more clear. The core shadow is basically the section, the kind of blurry line going like this, that is getting less reflected light and no direct light. And so perversely, it's the darkest part of the shadow usually, except for the occlusion shadow, because it's receiving the least direct light and the least amount. You know. And actually, you guys, a perverse thing, do you want to see the cast shadow pop out more? Okay, I'm going to make it pop out more. It's counterintuitive, but this is how I'm going to do it. Now it's more dramatic. Or actually, let's do this maybe. That probably changed it, right? Does that make it more dramatic?
Mm-hmm.
And it's because it doesn't get much light from here. This little narrow part is so, it's almost parallel to the surface of the cylinder is almost parallel to the light angle for a minute, and so it barely gets any light from either side. So, any other questions? Yeah.
So would that change if the bounce light was coming at an angle, like if you tilted the wall at an angle?
Watch. A little bit. It depends on your angle of view.
What if you tilted it like
It's a little hard to do. Let me do it this way. You know, honestly, you guys, when I think about it, I think of it as photon racquetball. You know, I try to imagine if I threw something at that or if I sprayed a hose at it, where would it go? Would it get that wet? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Any other lighting questions? Okay. Let me talk for just like, let me look through your cube city sketches. We can't really do them justice.